When it comes to electric cars, the Mitsubishi i-MiEV does not really go far to shout about it. This one has Go Faster stripes, alloys and an interesting spoiler. Only a badge on the back lets you know that the i-MiEV has some eco-credentials.
Now it's all very well being green, but what's it actually like to live with an electric car? Well, let's find out. Okay, first up, I'll address the 3 electric car questions that people always ask me as soon as they see that I've got an electric car at the moment. Firstly, the range. Well, Mitsubishi quote it as being around 90 miles. However, I found with my cross-country commute, which is actually 18 miles, I found that it's around about 60 miles is probably a bit more realistic if you're doing that sort of driving. Slower type commute, you probably would be getting closer to Mitsubishi's quoted figures.
The second question is, of course, how long does it take to charge? Well, for a full charge from empty, it's 7 hours. But I find just giving it a top up at the office helps. Before you moan about coal power stations, that's where our lecky comes from.
Oh yeah, the third question. We'll get onto that one later.
So practicality-wise, the car seats 4 adults, and you can fit full-size people in the back thanks to a design that gives loads of headroom. The boot, however, is not very good, even for a city car in this sector, but you can at least fold the rear seats down flat for carrying larger items.
Inside the i-MiEV though, the qualities of the materials aren't that great, especially when you take into account the third question. These plastics are a little bit scratchy, and some of the optional extras fitted to this car just seem a bit bonkers to me.
The leather dash just looks a little bit odd, and it's a 700 quid option. This Kenwood head unit with reversing camera that you might recognise from a Saxo in your local McDonald's car park costs, I'll let you guess. No, you're wrong, it's £1,855.
Why would you need a reversing camera on a car this small?
Anyway, bonkers options aside, the i-MiEV is actually a pretty decent car to drive. I've driven it over 200 miles in the last week, and remember, this is a rear-engined, rear-wheel drive car. The electric motor has 66 horsepower, but more importantly, it has instant access to 180 Nm of torque. So from 0 to 40, not much can keep up, and you see many surprised faces. Stability and traction control keep it all in check. It'll happily cruise at 60 miles per hour, and top speed is limited to 80 miles per hour. While the front tyres might be bordering bicycle thin, there's no big heavy engine sitting above them, so there's no notable understeer unless you get silly. While the batteries being mounted in the floor give it a low centre of gravity, so although it looks like it might be a car that wants to fall over, it's actually pretty solid.
On the dashboard, it's a pretty straightforward setup. In the middle, we've got a digital readout of the speed that I'm going at. On the right, got an odometer. On the left, we've got a battery indicator level. Then we've got a needle that goes around the top of that, and that changes depending on basically where your foot is on the accelerator. So if I let off now, it'll go into the charge mode to let us know that we're regenerating energy. Now the i-MiEV has 3 different driving modes. It hasn't actually got a gearbox as such. So you've got D, B and C. And in D mode, it's just like normal drive mode, like you'd get in a normal automatic. Then in B mode, it gives you extra regenerative braking, and it's actually quite sturdy. So if I let off the accelerator now, you can actually feel it slowing the car right down. And on the dashboard, I'm being told that the battery is going into charge mode. After that, we've got C mode. In C mode, we've still got the regenerative braking that helps with charging the batteries, but it's not quite as harsh. So if you're doing sort of cross-country driving like I've been doing with it at the moment, the C mode works quite well because you're not actually losing too much momentum and then having to build it back up with the acceleration.
This week, what I really wanted to see is, could the i-MiEV work outside of the urban environment, or is it just a city car? And in driving it over 200 miles this week, I can say yes, it can, and it's got plenty of power for everyday driving. But ultimately, I have to come back to that third question with an answer. As while the i-MiEV may only cost around £2 to charge fully, and it has no road tax or congestion charge applicable, it does cost £23,990, which is after the application in the UK of a £5,000 government plug-in grant. With sub 100 grand per kilometre city cars that cost around 7 grand, now able to avoid road tax and congestion charge as well, the financial incentive to go electric just isn't there at the moment. What the i-MiEV does is prove that electric power can work for some of us. And ignoring any of the green arguments about life cycle of vehicles or anything like that, this electric vehicle is actually one that's just nice to drive. It could just be the beginning.